Hey there, seniors, parents, and educators who are along for the ride. November is approaching, and if college is in your sights, seniors, now's the time to buckle up and get those applications ready. This is a month where preparation meets action. I'm going to walk you through the things that you need to do to tackle November and stay on track. Avoid last minute stress and make sure you're putting your best foot forward. So let's jump right in and make November count in your journey. Now, before we begin, I just want to say welcome back to another episode of Life Unscripted with Shavone. And today we're going to dive into something super important for you and all high school students out there, specifically high school seniors and let's say high school juniors as well, because it's equally as important for you to start to get prepared for your senior year. Now, what do you do in November? In November, you want to prepare for college for your up and coming fall semester. Okay? November is crucial, specifically crucial time because deadlines are sneaking up. And before you know it, the hustle of senior year will be in full swing. So let's talk about what the key things are and the key steps you need to take in this month to set yourself up for success. First things first, if you haven't already finalized your college list, by November, you should have a solid idea of where you're going to be applying. Make sure you have a balanced mix of reach schools, match schools, and safety schools. If you're not sure what those terms are, here's a quick breakdown. Now, reach schools. These are your dream schools. The ones that might be a bit competitive for your GPA and your test scores, but that's okay. Still aim for those schools because that's the school that you always dreamt to go to, right? Now, in addition to that, we always want to have a plan, a backup, and a backup for our backup, right? So the next step is match schools. Those schools are the schools where your academic records match based off of your average and your accepted student profile. So what does that mean? That means that on paper, when it comes to your academics, you know if your average is 80 or above, and that school acceptance rate is at the level of 80, that's a school that academically you can say, you know what, there's a higher probability of me actually being accepted into that school. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply for your REACH schools, as I said before, because you want to aim for the future. You want to reach for the stars and go for what your dreams entail. Now, when it comes to the match schools is a nice safety net in the event that for some reason you can't get into your REACH schools. Next is the safety schools. Safety schools are where you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're very confident that your chances of being accepted into that school is pretty good, right? For some people, that might even be, let's say, community college, because you know that you could have done better throughout the school year for different reasons. Your grades were a little bit lower, maybe your attendance wasn't perfect, or sometimes you just need that cushion, right? You just need some more time to say, you know what, I really need to sit back and apply myself a little bit more. So let me apply to this other 2-year institution. Let me get that GPA up. Let me make sure I attend those classes more and just prepare for a 4-year institution. Now, a safety school doesn't always have to just be a community college. It can be a school that academically your probability of being accepted into is just greater because they almost have an open door policy, right? Where they are willing to take the student with a lower GPA or with a background that doesn't necessarily entail like the ideal GPA level. Creating these 3 categories is perfect because you'll know, okay, yeah, I've always dreamt of going to Yale, but what's my backup plan? What happens if by chance I can't get into Yale? Because honestly speaking, They can't accept everyone. You need to be able to have a plan of action when it comes to, if in fact I can't get into that school, what happens next. Hence having those three categories. November is the perfect time to narrow down that list. And if you haven't started already, I would say to even make that list, right? So that way, okay, I'm going to focus on these schools. So let me sit down, make this list, separate it into these three categories, and then do some research, because it also includes doing your homework, right? It's not only about just, okay, get that application and apply for that school. No, you want to go and do a real deep dive into the specifics of what that school entails. What is that school about? Why am I interested in going into that school? What's their mascot? What is the actual on campus life like? Is that something that really matches what I'm looking for? It's completely fine to do that for every single category. Even if, let's say, it's a community college, you don't want to just go to a community college because it's safe and okay, that's it. I'm just going to apply here and go there. No, you want to really get your money's worth out of going to that college, right? You want to really put your all into knowing, you know what, this community college is known for this, and therefore I'm going to go there for that, and I'm going to transfer out to one of my reach schools, perhaps, right? Or one of your match schools. Next, let's move to the next category, which is early decision and early action deadlines, right? Pay attention to early decisions and early action deadlines. Many of these deadlines fall in early to mid November. If you're applying to schools through early decision or early action, make sure everything is ready: transcripts, recommendation letters, essays, and applications. Okay. Early decisions are binding, so this is super important for you to actually understand that the early decisions are binding. That means if you get into an early decision school, you're committed to going there. That's it, right? Early action is non-binding, and it gives you a jump on the decision-making process. So either way, this month is critical for those type of applications. And here's the thing: let's say you wanted to do early decision, but you're not sure if that is really the school that you want to focus on. Know that if you actually get accepted to that school, what does that look like? And do you really want to choose that school as your early action school? So you want to really, really make sure that this is the one that you're definitely putting your all into. And if that's the case, then yeah, go for it. And if you're accepted into early decision and you're super happy about it, that's fantastic. Now let's move into financial aid and scholarships. So let's talk about money. Applying for financial aid scholarships, you should be filing and filling out your application for FAFSA. So what is FAFSA? FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, right? Just in case if you haven't heard about that. It's super important that if you haven't already, that you start the process of filling that out. FAFSA opens in October, so that's literally when I'm creating this actual video. It started, today is October 25th. It's been open for a while now. So you want to start that process because sometimes it takes a little while in the initial stages to fill out that application, okay? So you need the tax forms for your parents if you are not filing independent. So it's going to take a little while for those to be done, or for you to get a copy. Sometimes us as parents, we have to go and figure out where we threw those tax papers, or speak to our accountant to make sure all of our T's and our I's are crossed, basically, to make sure that we're able to give them to you. FAFSA open in October, and the sooner you apply, the better your chances are of receiving aid, and really just making sure that all of the information is taken care of, right? Because sometimes what FAFSA does is you'll fill out the application and then either something's missing or they have a question about something, so you would have to send answer the question and send more documentation, upload different things. Sometimes you have to set up appointments with them, specifically when it comes to Tap and Pell. So also, some colleges have their own financial aid forms that you have to fill out. So you really want to make sure you know what's required for each school. So, talking about that list, once you narrow down and select the schools that you're interested in, you want to make sure that I'm going to say, let's say you have a list of 10 schools in each category. So that's technically 30 schools, right? You have 10 reach schools, 10 match schools, 10 of the easier schools, right? What you want to do, I'm going to say, at least for those top 5 schools, you want to make sure that you know all that it is for you to know when it comes to the requirements of all of those schools. So that means when it comes to the financial aid, what's their process? Do they have financial aid forms that you need to make sure are filled out? Or is it only the FAFSA forms? Do they offer scholarships? What does that look like? Are you eligible for scholarships? So I would say if you're going to have, because 10 schools for each category honestly is a lot, and that's a lot of energy to put into each. But I would say to have a minimum or a maximum of 5 schools. If you wanted to do 3 for each, that's better because you can focus on each at a certain time. But hey, maybe you're like, you know what? I don't want to focus only on 3 schools for each category. Although that would be 9 schools. I want to do the 5, or I want to do the 10. That's clearly fine because at the end of the day, it's about you. It's about what you want. It's about what your parents want as well, oftentimes. It's about also setting realistic expectations and realistic goals. And honestly, whatever you can manage. If you feel like you can put down 10 schools for each category and you can really put all the energy that is required for each of those 10 schools, then absolutely do it if that's what your thing is. As we continue to go along and you listen to this video or watch this video, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section. I'm going to be going through those and answering those when I can. And when and if needed, I'll create a video to answer some questions when I can. Or I'll speak to individuals that I know that are also in the field. I can try to find out different things that are needed. Okay, so let's continue. This is a great time also to research and apply for scholarships. There are tons of scholarships out there, and some have November deadlines. So it's super important to do that research and find out what's out there, right? You want to check out websites like FastWeb and scholarships.com for opportunities to match your profile. Trust me, free money for college is the best kind of money. And honestly speaking, even if it's, let's say, $500 scholarship, that's $500 more that you can put towards your education. That could equal to books for school. That could equal to so many different things, paper and the transportation or anything that's needed. And sometimes they have scholarships for various things. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's going to be in the major that you're trying to apply for. So, for example, if you're a biology major, but you are a phenomenal painter, feel free to look for some scholarships for painting. Sometimes they do have grants and scholarships that are allowed, or some of the requirements are just to be phenomenal at painting, and you can then apply it to your actual schooling when it comes to your biology major, because you can have oftentimes a minor and a major in school. So that's another reason why it's super important when it comes to those 3 categories to find out all the little different nuances that there is. So if you're a biology major, you really love painting, let's look at that school. Let's go back to Yale. It doesn't have to be a Yale, right? It can be a state university. Let's say you were interested in Binghamton and you want to be a biology major. You would look up, okay, what does the biology major look like at Binghamton? Okay, that's phenomenal. Is there an offer for a minor and a major? Do they have a art major, like where I can actually I can major in bio and I can minor in art? So many different ways that you can really approach it. So you really want to know what your options are when it comes to all of the schools, including when it comes to the scholarships and the financial aid. And as time I'll still continue to make other videos, as I said. One, depending on what I just feel like, oh, this is something great. Let me hop on and make a video about this. Or if it's a question that I receive. Since my channel is fairly new, I would say it's very possible it'd be interesting to find out who actually gets to see this and how it does. As I said, feel free to share as well, and feel free to write your questions down. So let's continue, because I can go on and on with just my verbiage. So next is letter of recommendations. This is really important as well. By now, you should have already asked teachers or counselors for letter of recommendations. And if you haven't, no judgment here. Do it now. So that means set up an appointment with your mentor or your counselor or your teacher to figure out what does that look like. Ask them for a letter of recommendation. Sometimes it's a matter of asking your teacher in school, oh, can I have a few minutes after class? I'm interested in, let's say, XYZ school, and I'm interested in Binghamton. Can I ask for a letter of recommendation? And see what they say. In addition to having those 3 categories for school, you want to have options when it comes to letter of recommendations. I would say at least try to get a minimum of 5 individuals that you can receive letter of recommendation for. Now, you might say, oh, but Shavone, I only know 4 teachers. That's okay. Start with those 4. This is why it's so important to plan, because in November, it's very possible that you might have to switch one of those individuals out for different reasons. Maybe one is just not available to give a letter of recommendation, or maybe as time progresses, you find out in November, oh, I only had 3 or 2 individuals to get a letter of recommendation from, but then you find out, oh, wait a minute, I can ask Coach XYZ in December to give you a letter of recommendation. Also, you'll have possibly another teacher for in the spring, right? Because we are only halfway there when it comes to graduating in like May and June, right? So start to have that conversation, start to formulate those ideas of, hey, let me start to think about who can I ask for a letter of recommendation, and start to write that down and get a feel for it. If it's a teacher that's approachable, that's wonderful and great. It's very possible that you might have to just send them an email to ask, or whatever forms of communication that you're used to doing at your school. If you have any questions about that, as I said, feel free. If you need like a generic letter of recommendation inquiry, like if you need me to have a downloadable form that you can use to ask for a letter of recommendation, feel free to ask, and I'll add that to a video or to this video. So if you haven't by now, now's the time, because a lot of your teachers, your counselors, and all school individuals are super busy. You know, we're equally as busy as you. So make sure that you give plenty of time and plenty of notice for them to write the letter. So that's another reason why you want to do this in November, because then they have time to get this done. Because oftentimes when you submit your application for school, the school actually knows as well it's going to take a little while to get those letter of recommendations, right? So that's another reason why you don't want to wait till the last minute, because then there's sometimes you have to send a gentle reminder to the individual that was supposed to do the letter of recommendation, right? And here's a tip. Send them a polite reminder if in fact you did ask for, let's say, a recommendation and you haven't heard back from the individual. It's completely okay to say, Professor or teacher XYZ, I was just wondering if it's okay for me to ask about my letter of recommendation. The deadline is November 15th, and I was wondering, is it possible to receive that copy or to have it sent to the school, which is another thing, not to pivot or to change the topics because it is related to it, that's something else you want to find out from the school and their process is how that letter of recommendation needs to be received. Some of them you have to have them, you give them the email address to the school and they send it that way. Whatever way that is required for the school, it should be in that application packet, basically. So you want to make sure you know those little notes and everything. So send them a polite reminder, and if you're still waiting for those letters to come in, it's perfectly okay to follow up as your deadline approach. And it's also perfectly okay to reach out to one of the individuals that's on your list for letter of recommendation. That's one of the reasons why I said to try to get like at least 5, because oftentimes you only need 3 letter of recommendations, right, for schools. But you want to make sure that you find out what the school requirement is. But having an option of, let's say, 5-6 people, you can then swap out, right? You can use one person for Bingham, you can use 3 people for Binghamton, and maybe swap out the 3 that you use and use the other 2 and one that you just used before as another letter of recommendation, right? So it's always good to have an option. So now let's move to personal statements and essays, right? You want to refine, revise, and stand out. You know, you've got to talk about those personal statements and essays, right? This is a time to refine, revise, and make sure your essays are showcasing the best version of yourself. You want to stand out from the crowd and add your personal statements in a way that will help you to do that, right? So here's a pro tip. Have a teacher or a counselor or even a friend review this essay when you're finished. Sometimes a fresh set of eyes will catch something that you've missed, right? Now, the good thing is you can always ask one of even your classmates that you're close with or you have a rapport with, if you wanted to set some time out, let's say, to work on your essays together, because sometimes community is so good and so important. So having a moment, instead of, like, let's say, going to the basketball, football game or whatever, or scrolling on TikTok, you have a time with your friends to sit down and we can write out your essays. And then you can each take turns figuring out what it looks like, what the flow is like, and, get an idea of just the initial stages of what that looks like. And then you can give it to a teacher to review for a actual final review or a mid review, like a review before your final copy, right? Super important. Something I shouldn't have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Of course, you don't want to take the same essay that your friend wrote and write the same essay, or swap out the name and swap out a few things and use that same thing, right? Format is okay, but actual words verbatim is not, okay? Super important. And having those type of things done can really, really hinder you from getting accepted into the school, right? And you really want to put your effort into school because now's the time. This is that next step into you slowly approaching into adulthood, right? So you want to give it your all, and you want to get into the habit of really putting in the energy that you need to and the work that you need to get that done. And if you're looking at this video, that means that this is super important to you and it's something that you've always wanted, especially if I'm almost a half an hour into this video, right? So that is very obvious that it's super important to you, right? So please, please, please don't go into ChatGPT and then have it write something for you verbatim. Make sure that it has a lot of personality and chutzpah, It showcases who you are as an individual, how interested you are in that school, why you're interested in that school, so on and so forth. So yes, super important, right? Next, we're going to go to is, I hopped too fast, but the next thing that we want to go to is tracking deadlines, okay? I cannot stress this enough. Stay organized and keep track of your deadlines. Use a calendar or a college application tracker. Everything's an app these days, so you can download a college application tracker to ensure that you don't miss a single deadline, right? Super important. If you're anything like me or you're just into a pen and paper version of it, that's completely fine. If you need to, nowadays you can download an actual calendar and you can write on it. And you can put it on your board, put it in your room, or take a picture of it and put it on your phone and save it so you can keep referencing it. You can set reminders on your regular app for free in your phone to have pop-ups that say, okay, on November 14th, the application is due. I would say a week before that, at least a week before that, you want to make sure that you send a reminder that it's due for that upcoming week, right? So we want to get into the habit, because this is also great practice when it comes to all of the deadlines that you're going to have when you go to college. That's one of the things that you're going to see when it comes to like your course work and your course load. You're going to have to get things done on time. So this is a perfect way to practice it, right? Use a calendar or a college application app to ensure that you don't miss a single deadline. Some colleges have rolling admissions, which is good. Rolling admissions means that it's an ongoing process of them allowing students to be actually admitted, right? That doesn't mean that you should wait until the last minute. No. That means that the earlier you apply, the better. The better chances to get in, the better chances to make sure that, your application, your FAFSA, your scholarships, everything is solidified, right? Other schools have stricter deadlines that could make or break your application process. So what does that mean? Schools that don't have rolling admissions, meaning it's not ongoing when they're accepting students. If a school says, okay, for this bio major, the application deadline is November 25th. That means all of your paperwork have to be in by November 25th. Sometimes they'll even have it where it'll say it's due November 25th at 5 p.m. That means before 5 p.m. on the 25th, it's due, right? And a word to the wise, also another key tip. You don't want to wait to that day of to then submit that application. Please, please, please give yourself some room. You never know if even the school's website is going to be down. You don't know if your computer, let's say, what if your computer crashes, you get a virus, or for some reason you have an emergency, you're unable to submit it on time, then you have to try to wait or ask for the school to give you an extension or something. You don't want to start out your schooling, your college education like that. You want to give yourself some time and a couple of days at least to be able to submit that application. And in order to do that, that means I highly recommend at least 1 or 2 days before the deadline to submit that application, okay? That's super important. Next, you want to went to the next slide. So next, let's talk about visiting the colleges. It's one of the reasons why it's really great to narrow it down and separate it by your order of importance, because it can take a lot of time and effort and money to do all of this, right? So that's one of the advantages of having a plan of action, creating these lists. So when it comes to visiting a college, you want to do that if possible. If you haven't done so already, you want to consider visiting some of your top colleges specifically. For one, because those are your dream choices. And it'd be good to meet that chairperson for that department that you're interested in and see them face to face. Have an engaging conversation, right? November can be a great time for campus tours, especially if you want to get a feel for the school before the chaos of the holidays start. Some schools even offer virtual tours if traveling is not an option. So that's good for all of us that can't necessarily make it in person. I would say that's why it's so important to go into those websites and really get to know the school. Really click on all of those things, click first, look to see if you can set up a tour. Is it virtual or is it in person? What does that look like? Can you realistically actually get to the school? If so, going back to that calendar, when are those dates that they have available for campus tours? Sometimes some campuses actually allow you to do personal tours, which means they'll set a date with you and your parents, and you can actually just visit the school without it being this big thing with this huge rush of people that are coming in at the same time to look at the school. In cases like that, if you can do that, especially for a school that you do really want to be in and attend, that's super important. And that's like such a great key to do, is because if you can set up an individual tour, let's say, that means it's a one-on-one tour, oftentimes with someone that works at the school that will take you around. And ideally, you can meet some of the faculty members and really get to know what it looks like to be a student, right? So that's a great thing to do. If you're planning to take or retake the SATs or the ACT scores, which is the ACTs in December, to boost your scores, now is the time to start prepping. Use this month to study, but don't burn yourself out. Set up a schedule and stick to it, right? While not to jump around, but also if I can just go back, while you're on campus, you want to ask questions about the academics, about the student life, the support services, and get a complete picture of what it looks like to be a student there, right? When it comes to the schooling, are you considering out of state or in state? And what does that look like on your desired schools, right? With your three categories, right? I would, even if it was me and my child, I would put like on that list, I would note if it's in state or out of state. Because when it comes to the finances, sometimes there are costs when it's an out of school state versus an in school state. So you really want to have those specifics noted, right? And that's something that's also great to do in November as December approaches, right? And so now, as I approach into my little December category, and as I just noted about the ACT, the SAT, and the ACT, right? You want to create a study schedule. Organize your study time and prepare without feeling overwhelmed. That's one of the good things when it comes to planning. You want to plan, they say failure to plan is planning to fail, right? You want to make sure that you give yourself enough time, because there's so much stress that you're under already. You're already under the pressure of just going to school, and it's so exciting because this is going to be your first experience as a freshman, which is amazing and phenomenal. So giving yourself some time is equally as important. So if the SAT, the ACT is one of the requirements for that school that you're trying to go into, make sure, same thing, that you find out what those dates are, that you study, you plan to study, you set some time for that. You can even add that to your calendar, similar to what you've done, let's say, in high school as well. And you want to focus on your weak areas. You want to give yourself enough time to actually take time out and study on the things that are not necessarily your strong point, right? If you know you're taking the SAT, or you know that there's an entry exam, because that's something else you want to find out too. Some of the schools have entry exams that you have to take when it comes to college in order to get in. What does that look like? Do they have some study sessions? Because sometimes the school have either a class that you can sign up for or to pay for, which ideally, if you can, and this is why it's important to find it out early, is find out if let's say the school is once again Binghamton, just because I've been using it in the beginning stages of this. If Binghamton has entry level exam that needs to be taken so you can find out where your math requirements are and your English requirements are. Then find out if they are giving some type of summer class that you can take, like a preparation before the fall semester, so you can sign up for that, albeit if it's virtual or in person. What does that look like, right? We can go into further details with regards to that. But I just wanted to note that because that was just something that came to me just now since I'm looking at this. But I can create a video or just like a brief, go into that into further details if needed. Just let me know in the comments or anything, right? So next, my last slide for today session. Take a moment for you, okay? This is super important. Finally, take a breath. This process is a lot, and I get it. Make sure that you take some time for yourself to relax and recharge. Remember, college is a step towards your future. It's an exciting step, but it's a step towards your future. And it's not only a step, but you don't want to lose sight of who you are while you're in that process, right? And you want to enjoy these moments. I mean, your senior year of school is so important and so amazing, right? So you want to take all of that in because it's literally like a ceremony into being a little kid that was in high school to going into college, right? Which is so super exciting. Many of us, it's a dream for us to go to your favorite school, to just go to college, period, right? I remember that feeling of feeling like an adult because I was going to college. It's something that can't be expressed until you just do it, right? That's when you get to your next chapter of friends and figure out like all these different things, right? So just enjoy those moments before that. Enjoy this next couple of months because it's going to be a lot when it comes to the process of getting the paperwork done, but it's well worth it. It's absolutely well worth it. And we'll continue to go through that. My aim is to make a video for each month, at least one video like this that talks about the next steps, right? 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go over some of the application steps, depending on what it feels like and what I'm being told in the comments, right? So that's all for today's episode of Life Unscripted with Shavone. November is a busy month, but if you stay on top of these tasks, you'll be in great shape as you prepare for college. Stay focused. Stay organized, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. I'm cheering for you. I believe in you, and I don't even know you yet, but it's okay. If no one has told you today, you're doing a great job, even if you feel like you're not, even if you're scared about what happens next. Know that just trying sometimes is enough, right? Just putting one step in front of the other. You don't have to make November perfect. You don't even have to finish all of these things that I'm saying. That's one of the reasons why I'm saying it now, because now's the time to start it. And so that you have time in December to finish what you did in November. Let's be honest, right? Sometimes we need a minute, and that's okay. I want you to know that's okay. If you need to go back over this video, that's fine. If you need to chop it up and get different points out of it, that's fine as well. Feel free. If you need to, as I said a couple of times, if you want to reach out because you have a question and you want to know how should you proceed with this, I'll see what I can do about finding it out, or at least saying, oh, contact the school and figure XYZ out. That's totally fine, right? Just know that you're doing a good job regardless. And just keep going. That's all we can do in life, is to just keep going. I believe in you. I'm cheering for you. I'm super proud of you. This is amazing. And until the next time, be safe, be well.